Tonight, the crucial French election and the unexpected results from the exit polls.
Vive la France! Vive la France!
A coalition of the French left bands together to beat a surging far right.
The people of France understand this is a very decisive moment.
What the stunning outcome means for the country and President Macron. The CRA on the hunt and facing hurdles in collecting COVID loans.
You can't take blood from a stone, right? I mean, I don't have any money. They can see my taxes.
Battles between claimants and the agency as it tries to recoup billions. Plus, what life is like on the red planet. Hey. The simulated space experiment and the reality of putting people on Mars.
A little subset of us pushing the very edge of what's possible.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. A left-wing coalition in France appears to have pulled off a shocking outcome, winning the most seats in Parliament, keeping the far-right party, who were predicted to have a historic night, out of government. Voters took to the streets after polls closed late tonight, some protesters clashing with riot police. There is relief for some, but still the surprising result threatens to plunge the country into political turmoil. CTV's Jeremy Sharon starts us off.
A stunning outcome celebrated by young voters in Paris tonight. It could have been an historic French election and a pivotal turning point for the country, a projected far-right surge to send a message to President Emmanuel Macron. But instead, its new Popular Front, an alliance of left-leaning parties led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon, set to secure the most seats in France's National Assembly against expectations.
Notre peuple.
Our people have clearly rejected the worst-case scenario, said Mélenchon in his victory speech. Tonight, the national rally is far from having the absolute majority that was predicted, he said. A successful strategic effort by the center and left in a second-round vote that saw an unusually high turnout.
You had a couple hundred candidates withdraw from various constituencies, that whichever one had left with the best chance to defeat the far-right candidate would have an unopposed shot.
What is clear tonight is who will not be prime minister. The far-right National Rally's Jordan Bardella plummeted from first place after the first-round vote to third. Tonight, France sees itself deprived of a majority government to act and therefore a clear direction to fix France, said Bardella. Now, President Emmanuel Macron, whose centrist Ensemble alliance captured the second most seats today, will be left with no clear path to choose a prime minister and a hung parliament without a majority.
Now, Macron cannot call fresh elections until a year has elapsed after this one. So we could very well see a year where France is in a position of political stalemate.
Prime Minister Gabriel Attal says he will resign. The president says he'll wait before making a decision on a new government, but has vowed to respect the French people's choice.
The snap election result is likely to gridlock France's National Assembly and stall domestic policy, which will impact Macron's progress in the remaining 3 years of his presidency, with a ripple effect beyond the country. Heather?
Jeremy, thank you. Israel's prime minister is facing renewed calls to resign as thousands of protesters caused widespread disruption. Burning tires jammed traffic as demonstrators gathered along a busy highway. Others were dragged away by police after sitting on railway tracks. In Tel Aviv, a huge crowd filled the streets, demanding a ceasefire that would bring home all remaining hostages. The protests mark exactly 9 months since the October 7th attacks. In the U.S., people in Texas are bracing for Beryl. The tropical storm is intensifying in the Gulf of Mexico, expected to make landfall as a hurricane.
It will strengthen, most likely, and it will be a deadly storm for people who are directly in that path.
The storm's outer bands are already lashing the coast, with people urged to evacuate before it's too late. Business owners within Beryl's path today boarding up windows as they prepared for the destructive weather to hit. Heavy rains have already poured down on Houston, flooding roads across the city. Extreme weather is also being felt along the west coast. Tens of millions of people are sweltering through a long-running heat wave that could continue to smash records. In California, low humidity and scorching temperatures are fueling a wildfire burning near Santa Barbara. It more than doubled in size overnight, forcing people living nearby to flee their homes.
Yeah, really, really hot. I mean, like, if I took off my slippers and I went in that sand, it's burning. So burning.
Extreme heat is also gripping large parts of Western Canada. In BC's southern interior, temperatures hovered in the high 30s. Heat warnings are in place for multiple communities right across the country, including most of Alberta. Almost 90,000 people were left without power along Montreal's South Shore after a bus collided with a car before crashing into an electrical tower. The force of the impact toppling the 50-meter-tall pylon, knocking out power to customers across the region. 3 people were injured in the crash, including 2 volunteer firefighters. Power is slowly being restored through other lines. Rebuilding the tower is expected to take days. There are legal warnings on the way from the CRA to Canadians who may still be owing in COVID loans. After ruling many people ineligible for these payments, the tax agency is still trying to collect billions of dollars. CTV's Kamal Karmali on the court battles brewing.
This is musician Patrick Massey in his element. It's a passion of love, not money, only getting paid for the odd gig. So when COVID struck, his career hit pause, and so did his income. He then applied for federal COVID benefits.
I realized I qualified for it, so I jumped on it.
But now the Canada Revenue Agency says he needs to pay back more than $27,000. It says Massey wasn't eligible for the benefits.
It just stresses me out, you know. It's beyond belief.
Massey says the CRA asked him to prove he had a steady income back in 2019, an income that was lost when the pandemic hit. The problem is with multiple freelance jobs, he says the CRA is disputing what he earned as a self-employed individual, even though his local MP vouched for him, saying he has provided abundant evidence.
This has happened, by the way, to other constituents of mine who have work that is less regular, if you will.
The CRA now asking Massey to pay it all back.
So are you afraid of any legal repercussions?
No, because where are they going to get the money from? I don't have any. You can't take blood from a stone, right?
The CRA began sending out legal warnings this month to Canadians who were not eligible for the COVID benefits, but took the money anyways and haven't paid it back. The agency is now trying to retrieve $9.5 billion, including more than $5 billion from CERB and billions more from other benefits. Now, many Canadians are fighting back against the CRA's demands for repayment, which may be a losing cause.
It can garnish wages. It can take away refunds that were otherwise entitled to you. It can take away your GST credit or any kind of other credit you're getting. It could seize assets of yours.
Tax lawyers say people can still go to a federal court to fight the CRA's decision. Meanwhile, the Canada Revenue Agency says it remains committed to being flexible with these repayments. Heather.
All right, Kamal, thanks. This is shaping up to be a summer of discontent as numerous employers and unions face off. Workers with the Children's Aid Society in Ottawa are set to strike tomorrow after bargaining broke down over the weekend. CTV's Sam Haupt on how this will impact families.
The calm before the storm outside Children's Aid Society of Ottawa Sunday. Come Monday morning, this sidewalk will be filled with Children's Aid workers striking because of what their union calls poor working conditions inside.
Workers are crying in their cars. People are going on burnout leave. People have been quitting.
The problem, a lack of funding and resources from the province, while workers are asked to take on more kids with complex needs. 9 months of bargaining led to a breaking point between the union and Children's Aid Saturday.
The employer has already told us they're planning on laying off dozens of workers. right now, and we are already crumbling under workload pressures.
In a rare team-up, the union and Children's Aid are both calling on the province for more staff and more funding. The Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services did not respond for our request for comment Sunday, but in a recent statement to CTV News, the province says it's redesigning the child welfare system to focus on high-quality services that prioritize safety, are culturally appropriate, and are responsive to the needs of children, youth, and families. It goes on to say the ministry has increased funding by approximately $14 million for child protection services. But the union isn't buying it.
So they talk about redesign, but we haven't seen any evidence of it. And all we actually see are more expectations, more standards, more rules, without any funding to go with it.
Officials say Monday's picket line will see a complete disruption of Children's Aid services. The union prepared to strike until a deal is reached that excludes any and all layoffs. Sam Haupt, CTV News.
A strike by ship and dock foremen at BC ports has been averted tonight after a decision from Canada's Industrial Relations Board deemed it illegal. The CIRB says the union failed to properly bargain in good faith when it issued a strike notice based on a vote conducted among employees of only one member employer. The BC Maritime Employers Association has now rescinded an industry-wide lockout notice. Regular cargo and passenger operations at BC ports will continue uninterrupted. Passengers are still feeling the ripple effects from a two-day strike by WestJet mechanics 1 week after it ended. The airline calling off another 131 trips over the weekend. More than 1,000 flights were canceled over the Canada Day long weekend, considered one of the busiest travel windows of the year. WestJet says it's attempting to revamp operations. A unique mission has come to an end for 4 NASA volunteers sealed inside a simulated Mars habitat for more than a year. The quest to study life on the red planet is a critical step to making it a reality. Here's CTV's Christina Tanalia.
Just ready to come out? The crew of 4 emerged after 378 days in confinement. It felt like an out-of-this-world mission, but this team never left the ground.
It's actually just so wonderful to be able to say hello to you all.
Hello from Earth, as this was a mission to Mars simulation, a NASA first.
Wow, that went by quickly.
The quartet of volunteer crew members spent more than a year in this 3D printed 17,000 square foot facility, about the size of a hockey rink. It's an elaborate makeshift Mars environment at the Johnson Space Center in Houston.
And I really hope this helps us get that much closer to the reality of putting boots on Mars.
That reality means working out some challenges.
There's a lot of different problems to solve, and the only way to start solving them is through good simulation.
Retired astronaut and Colonel Chris Hadfield was the first Canadian to walk in space.
So if you're going to stay on Mars for extended periods, then you have to rethink how you do everything. Where does your food come from? What do you do when things break?
And that's what this crew did, carrying out experiments, growing vegetables, conducting simulated Mars walks, and gathering data that will help the space agency to prepare to return to the Moon and Mars. NASA's last successful mission was the Perseverance rover. It landed on Mars' surface in February 2021. But humans have never touched the red planet.
Why go to Mars? Because it's possible.
And we'll sort of go when the technology gets good enough to make it reasonably safe. A little subset of us pushing the very edge of what's possible. That's always been what has turned history.
As for these simulated missions on Earth, NASA plans to carry out 2 more. And the space agency hopes for the real deal to send astronauts to Mars in the early 2030s. Heather.
Just a few years away. Christina, thanks. Coming up, Canada's car theft crisis.
It blew my mind, like how everyone was just very laissez-faire and nonchalant.
A victim speaks out after her vehicle vanished from a hotel parking lot. Plus, art advocates inspiring a unique journey. It's estimated one vehicle is stolen every 5 minutes in Canada. A tourist visiting Montreal is one of the latest victims. She's sharing her disappointment and how the sudden theft was handled. Here's CTV's Olivia O'Malley.
The Quality Hotel Montreal East has a parking lot right outside the main entrance. So Vanessa Sabatini parked her Jeep there overnight, assuming it would be safe.
I parked it so that the office, like the front desk office, could see it, just because it was like, the area to me in general felt a little iffy, and the back garage was like full of random people all the time, and there was no security.
Even though the Toronto resident thought it would be fine out front, when she woke up last Sunday morning, her car was stolen.
To myself, I'm like, am I losing it? Like, did I like? And so I walked around a little bit, being like, maybe it's somewhere around here. Like, I don't know why, but, and then I was like, okay, this is gone.
She says the front desk called police, but no one had access to the security footage because the manager was away. Sabatini says staff told her vehicles are stolen from the hotel regularly, and she felt like they didn't seem to care or want to help.
It blew my mind, like how everyone was just very laissez-faire and nonchalant.
On the hotel's website, there are multiple one-star reviews. Several guests said their car was stolen while staying there. Located just off Highway 40, Automobile Protection Association Director George Eny says thieves have an easy getaway.
So you can move the vehicle quickly. A hotel parking lot, particularly one that is a long-term, offers the advantage of having a pretty good idea that the vehicle won't be used overnight.
Montreal police say it won't give a history of stolen vehicles at a specific address, but say from January 1st to March 23rd of this year, 1,870 vehicles have been stolen in the city. The Quality Hotel Montreal East refused an interview. In a statement emailed to CTV News, its general manager says, "We are cooperating with local authorities and providing them with our security footage for this ongoing investigation. The safety of our guests is our top priority, and we have made considerable efforts to combat crime." She says these efforts include upgrading its surveillance system, upgrading lighting in the parking area, providing gated parking on the second level, and regular security rounds of the hotel and grounds. Eny says these security upgrades are a must, while Sabatini says it won't bring her car back. She hopes they save other hotel guests from future theft. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News.
Still ahead tonight, saddling up for a competition that's no horseplay. Ottawa is saddling up for Ontario's largest equestrian competition. Hundreds of horses are in pursuit of a cash prize, with some south of the border even jumping in on the action. Caitlin Wilson has more.
It's a bond like no other.
He's everything. He makes me happy. He's got an amazing personality, and he just always brings a smile to my face.
A lifelong passion for Erin Oswald, who is warming up with her horse Everest, getting ready for the last day of competition at Wesley Clover Parks.
It's a lot of work, it's a lot of long days, long nights, but it's all worth it in the end.
More than 680 horses competing in the Ottawa Summer Tournament, a national show jumping event attracting riders from all over the U.S. and Canada, including right here in Ottawa.
This facility has bloomed the last couple of years. It's grown in size, it's grown in facility. We always love coming here. It's our hometown show, of course.
Top athletes vying for victory in the $5,000 Nations Cup, including aspiring Olympian Maria Iserman and her horse Pepe.
I just imported him from Belgium a couple weeks ago, actually a month ago I think now, and I love him. I do him right now in the meter 20 because he's only 7, but hopefully one day we'll move up to the meter 40 in the Grand Prix.
The facility marking a milestone this year, celebrating 10 years of tournaments and growth in the nation's capital.
It brings a lot of economic generation, it brings a lot of visitors, but it also helps elevate equestrian sport in our Ottawa area.
Attracting top talent and introducing young riders and spectators to the sport.
I just kind of wanted to show them how much fun this can be and how lovely the horses are.
Sybil and her brother Hugo testing their balance, getting an idea of what it's like to be in a saddle.
It's been fun, like seeing the horses jumping over the poles.
a labor of love for these riders and for anyone looking to follow in their footsteps.
It's not always going to be easy, but it's always worth it in the end if you just keep going, keep your head up, keep looking up, keep kicking, basically.
Caitlin Wilson, CTV News.
Now to a close call for a 9-month-old puppy named Misty, who plunged 9 meters into a narrow cave in Hawaii.
There you go. It's okay.
A brave hiker discovered the trapped puppy, attached a harness to her, and pulled her to safety. Misty is now back home with family. Well, after the break, a picture of optimism. The mother and daughter inspiring each other to overcome adversity. We leave you tonight with a mother-daughter duo inspiring each other to succeed through creativity. CTV's Adam Sawatsky paints the picture.
To appreciate how Charlotte Friend ended up painting unexpectedly,
I had picked up a paintbrush out of sheer boredom.
we need to go back to when she began raising her baby girl Becca optimistically.
She was awesome, and it was number 2, and I knew what I was doing, I thought.
Until Becca's struggles with walking led to her being diagnosed with a mild form of cerebral palsy, which felt devastating.
And I wasn't sure that we, as parents, would be equal to the task or what her future would look like.
But despite Becca's brain processing uniquely, despite the right side of her body moving differently, Charlotte and her husband were committed to help their daughter become the best she could be.
Thankfully, we had a really determined redhead. You don't mess with a redhead.
Charlotte encouraged Becca to face the kids who bullied her for wearing patches and braces with bravery, and attempt everything she wanted to do in and out of the classroom with determination.
You might not be able to do things quite as the other kids do, but you can find your own ways of doing things.
And Becca did, graduating from high school after starring in student plays, earning a university degree before landing a good job, and recently marrying the love of her life.
And I wasn't worried about her in life because I knew she could handle anything.
Which brings us to when Charlotte started painting during the pandemic, despite never having done anything artistic in her life before.
And eventually Rebecca said to me, "Mom, you have something." And I said, "No, I don't."
But Becca persevered on her behalf, found a venue for Charlotte to display her work, and her mom sold her first few paintings.
I think I've taught my mom to just have faith in yourself. She taught me that, and I kind of give it back to her.
And now Charlotte is a prolific painter, spending her retirement relishing being a professional artist.
But having somebody in your corner saying, "You can do this, you know you've got this," is just tremendous.
Like Charlotte was once her daughter's biggest advocate, Becca is now her mom's greatest champion.
She tells me, "Mom, I am so proud of you." And that just, I mean, it makes your heart sing.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, Victoria.
A beautiful bond. That is our show for this Sunday. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Omar and Sandy are here tomorrow. Good night.